I did it. I've built it. As you can see, on this side I have a new shed, and on the other side I have the old part of the shed. So now it's twice as big as before. I spent around 50 hours building it and around 3,000 euros. And of course a lot of sweat. So I hope you like it. Enjoy the video. This is what I had here before. A hidden place to store things I don't want to see in the garden. And a 3x3 meter shed. Since I have a motorcycle but do not have a place to store it, I decided to build a garage next to my shed. As with any other project, you always start with a plan. And my plan was made in Microsoft Paint. Not the best tool for engineering drawings, but more than enough for this build. I still want to hide my garbage containers behind a green wall, so I have to move it a bit and put some tiles to make a nice hidden corner for containers in front of the garage. The process is quite straightforward. You dig, then you dig a bit more, and then you dig a bit more. And of course a bit of grinding, because you need to cut existing tiles and borders. For this 1.2 by 1.2 meters corner, I had to remove 300 kilograms of soil and replace it with sand. I had a bit of help from my daughter, which was really helpful. Replanting everything back, and I really hope that it's gonna survive. If not, I had to do it again next spring. I've placed these tiles 6 years ago, so even though I bought the same tiles now, they have a bit different color. Placing the tiles is quite straightforward process. You put some sand, you level it, remove everything you don't need, and then just put new tiles on top of the sand. I've bought impregnated SLS wood beams for this project, and it cost me around 800 euros with delivery. Exact size of these beams you can find in the description. Outside walls I bought planks that will match my existing shed. I already have a 1 meter high brick wall, so my wooden structure will rest on it. Marking everything according to my Microsoft Paint drawings and cutting accordingly. Oj! Oj! Wstawaj! For the frame I've used 80mm galvanized screws. Working alone is sometimes a bit hard, but if you are creative enough, you can utilize some tools to help yourself. Roof beams will rest on the existing wall. I use 160mm screws to connect this beam to the frame of the wall. On the opposite side, I am fixing the frame to the brick wall with 120mm double nail. I am using this foil to isolate wood from the moisture in the bricks. From one side, roof beams will rest on the supports connected to the wall, and on the other side they will rest on the frame. There are never too many screws, so let's add more. Sometimes it was really hard to work with 5-meter long beams, but I had limited options when I ordered them. For 180mm screws I had to pre-drill, because otherwise it can break the beam. It was my first time building wooden frames, and I think it worked out quite okay. Let's now reinforce this construction a bit to make it a bit more sturdy. I didn't do any engineering calculations for this project, I just looked at the existing shed and copied what I saw there. Size of beams, distance between studs, so I hope it will be strong enough to withstand our November storms. What is the best way to test something? Just put your weight on it. I hope it's good enough. Front wall will be connected to the existing shed on one side and to the brick wall on the other. I will also screw it to the side wall and to the roof beams. Using the same foil to keep moisture out of the wood. Later I will hammer this frame to the floor. It was way easier to assemble frame on the spot, since I have less chances to miss with the size, and I just do not have so much space in the garden. As you can see, roof beams have a slight angle. To be precise, it's 3 degrees. This is to let rainwater fall to the side. I'm gonna move door from the existing shed to the front wall of the garage, so placing a bit bigger stud here. For this project I use around 400 screws of different sizes. Most of them are 80mm to connect studs, and sometimes I use 120 and 180mm. I need these horizontal studs to reinforce construction, and so later I could also nail outside planks to them. Also, they will be a part of inner shelves. It's time to work on the back wall. First, let's remove fence and replace few tiles. The main reason I want to build this garage is to have a place for my motorcycle. Place I can easily drive in and out. And my old door is too narrow for that. So the back part of the garage will be a 2 by 2 meters sliding door with a remote control. In the last 6 years, this side of the curb sunk few centimeters, so it's time to level it. As Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and I shall move the world. I mean, here I'm moving the curb. Another thing to keep in mind, it should be strong enough. Here we do the same, a bit more sand and, of course, new tiles. You can clearly see the difference in color, even though it's the same tiles. There is not much you can do with the 6 years of sun exposure. To support sliding door on the sides, I used 80 by 80mm studs. As with the other wall, one side will be screwed to the existing shed with 180mm screws, and the other side will be hammered to the brick wall. I'm building the frame on the spot here as well. It's way easier to measure each stud and cut it than to make the whole frame and then hope it will align with the sidewall and roof. But I am not a carpenter, so maybe I am doing something really stupid and wrong, so the whole thing gonna eventually collapse. To cover the roof, I used moisture-resistant chipboard and a layer of EPDM on top of it. I will leave links to all materials I bought for this build in the description, but be aware, everything is in Dutch. I am using smaller 55mm screws to fixate the board. I had to buy 3 boards, but I only needed 2 and a tiny bit for the roof, so I will use the rest to cover some inner parts of the wall and will make a small shelf inside the garage. There are never too many shelves. And again, it was way easier to just cut everything on the spot. For the siding, I use impregnated pine wood planks. I tried to match style and size of the existing shed, but again, after 6 years of sunlight and rain exposure, it's almost impossible to match color. I really hope that after a few years, this will look less new and will blend better with old wood. I had to cut some planks to leave enough space for the door, which I will install a bit later in this video. To nail down all planks, I am using 50mm stainless steel nails with round heads, again to match what I already have in the shed. I used around 400 nails in this build. On this side, planks are covering top part of the brick wall and have some foil in between. This will prevent water from leaking inside. This is the last plank I nail for now. The rest have to be measured and nailed after I have sliding door installed. I just like cutting everything on the spot instead of measuring in advance, but sometimes it's a bit hard to get to the place where you have to cut. Time to put my old bamboo fence back and connect it to the garage. Simple engineering solution. I still have old tiles that I removed from the back, so I can cut and use them here. Water helps to keep at least a bit of dust out of air. I do not have large enough grinder to cut 40mm in one go, so I have to rely on my ninja skills. But hammer worked better. And it's time to use chipboard leftovers. Covering top part of the back wall to hide sliding door motor. And adding 2 top shelves so I can store more things. Working alone is sometimes challenging. Luckily, I love challenges. I already have roof and walls, so it's time to add some light. I am using 2 LED lights, 1200 lumen each, more than enough for this space. I plan to add motion sensor to automatically turn it on when I enter, but for now I will use manual switch. I am mounting light on the beams, so I can still use space in between them without covering the light source. And of course making everything nice and neat. Finally I got my sliding door delivered. It comes with 2 rails that are already cut for the right size. You only have to drill mounting holes. This is most expensive part of the build, since I got remote controlled motor with a bit faster spinning. Takes around 15 seconds to open the door. You can also connect this to your home automation via the hub, but you have to buy it separately. For now, I have a keychain remote button, a panel on the wall inside the garage and a keypad lock on the outside. It's more than enough to cover all the scenarios. This motor has to be powered, so I had to drill a hole in the beam to get to the power source. Throughout this build I had a few heavy lifting sessions. Luckily, no major injuries, only tiny cuts and few bruises. I had a small leak in the shed, so I decided to remove old roof and cover everything with a single sheet of EPDM. This will also eliminate the need of connecting a new roof to the existing. There was a bit of moisture in this corner, so I let it dry for a bit before placing EPDM. Covering sides of the roof with the leftovers of cheap board. As you can see, front and back walls are leveled to have a nice straight edge that will later be covered with aluminum trim, and the roof is a bit tilted to let the water slide to the drainage system. 5.5 by 3.5 meters sheet of EPDM with glue cost me exactly 600 euros. You have to let EPDM rest for around 1 hour to release any tension, so it's a perfect time to finish siding. A bit of foil to prevent water dripping behind the sliding door. Oh, it's a perfect match here. Decided to place all the planks and then cut it on the spot, and that saved me a lot of time. EPDM is well rested, time to glue it, but before I had to do the drainage system on the old roof. One side of the roof is tilted a bit, and then there is this special thing to let the water in the pipe. There are two types of glue for EPDM, the one you use to glue EPDM to the roof and the rubber glue to seal edges. Here I am applying the first type. For the rubber glue you also have two options, glue in the can and spray. I first started with the can, but it took me way too much time and was really hard to work with, so I just went to the supermarket and bought spray. That saved me a lot of time. I'm using aluminum trim with a rubber sealant to make it nice and completely waterproof. And it's finally time to move door from the old shed to the new entrance. It was way harder to remove the door, I even had to cut few screws. As you can see, I will have no door between old shed and the garage, so this will become a single space with a wall in between, where I can build more shelves to store things I most probably had to throw away in the first place. Adding aluminum trim to the doorstep to improve durability. I had bought few extra beams just in case, so I'm using them for my shelves, and it's time to mount them. The last remaining piece of chipboard will also be used as a shelf. As I said, there is never too many shelves in the garage. As you can see, roof is sticking out for around 7 cm, so I can mount drainage system. This is mostly to keep this side of the garage a bit drier. So, this is what I've made. A place to keep my motorcycle dry in the winter and a bunch of new shelves to store my instruments. But the most important, I had a lot of fun building it. It was challenging enough since I never built anything like that alone, and I learned a lot. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you also learned something new. See you in the next videos.